I'm Matt Kepple, and I'm here to kind of talk to you about how we can change the world our way. Something that's been really important to me, I guess, like throughout my whole upbringing, is that I've always believed that people are inherently good, and it's our role as creative people and people who care about causes to try and find ways to enable people to connect with the causes that we're really passionate about and see if we can change the way that things come across so that it feels appealing to people. And so I guess one of the first examples of me believing that people were up for getting involved with different causes was this KFC story, which isn't Kentucky Fried Chicken, even though it's something that I do love. No, this was when I was 13 at secondary school, and we had our school disco. I couldn't afford the school disco ticket. It was £3.50. Don't cuss me. My cash was just low. So I couldn't afford to get there. And so I got into school early, and on the blackboard, I wrote up KFC, which stood for Kepple Fund Charity. And I was like, okay, guys, I need like £3.50 to crowdsource this to attend the disco. And people genuinely were like, okay, I can give like 20p, the price of a Snickers bar, back in 1994. And all these, I wrote it all on the board, and we raised the £3.50, and I kind of did it as an experiment, but it was so cool. And I went to the disco, and the disco was good, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was awesome. So it was trivial, but it was also really good learning in terms of when you give people a goal to work towards and you make it something that they feel they can be part of, then it's amazing how much support you can get, even if it's a little bit weird. And then the second kind of thing from my childhood is my parents. So growing up, they always used to sponsor a child, so I kind of always had that in the back of my mind. And then I remember when I was like about 13, 14, me and my sister used to watch those Oxfam commercials that said, just give £2 a month. But given that our pocket money was just £2 a month, we were like, okay, we'll do this when we can actually afford it. And then at school, we had our charity society, and I was involved in that a little bit. I don't really remember what happened too much. But I think my parents definitely instilled in me this idea of, okay, well, if you can do some good stuff, then you should. And so in my mind, it was just natural that people were always up for getting involved with doing good things if it could fit in with what they were doing. So fast forward, I went to uni. It's a shame I no longer have these guns. Like, things have just fallen away. I got to Birmingham, was studying chemistry, and I got involved with Fame the musical, and for me that was a really good start to just my uni experience, because I hadn't really done like much in the way of musical theatre stuff, and it was great to just see how students could organise things, and it definitely shifted my belief in what students could make possible, because up until then I just thought uni was about just like going out and having fun and maybe doing a little bit of studying. So to actually create something was epic, and because of this I then like built up this great network of singers and dancers who I ended up using in projects that I'll tell you about further along. But that was kind of my kind of beginning into this whole thing of students doing something and me having a role within that. And so as I said, my parents used to sponsor a child, and so having got my student loan, £4,000, that's the most money I'd ever had. So I was like, okay, I'm rich. I can definitely afford to sponsor a child. So I started doing that, and that cost £15, £18 a month. So I was doing it for about 2 or 3 months, and then you know what it's like being a student, like you've got other expenses, like karma, and other things that you need to spend your money on. So I ended up cancelling my sponsorship, and I say it in a funny way, but it was disappointing, and it was frustrating, and it was a little bit embarrassing. But I've definitely learned in my experiences that having situations that are frustrating and embarrassing usually lead towards coming up with an idea that has to overcome them. And so I remember sitting in my room, having cancelled it, and just thinking, this is ridiculous that I'm cancelling this sponsorship, because I know that my friends could easily chip in £1 a month each, and we could sponsor this kid like collaboratively. So I wrote it in my ideas book and kind of just left it. And then about a year later, I was like speaking with some of my CEU friends, and they were like, Matt, this is a really cool idea, we should take it forward. So I went to the student development office, and they were like, okay, that's a cool idea, you should speak to Carnival, which I'd heard of. Like, I'd heard of the RAG because I had some friends who were in it, but I wasn't really properly involved. So I spoke to them, and they were like, okay, Matt, this is a cool idea, we can definitely weave this into what we're doing. And I think one of the things that I've definitely done through everything I've done in terms of ideas use other people's ideas. Like, I think Joe was saying that with this conference, he was like, so many of the things we've kind of just tried to improve things. And so it wasn't me that came up with the name for what we were going to do. One of my friends said, Matt, if we're going to do child sponsorship for students and making it £1 a month each, there's no point going down the traditional fundraising like communications of making it maybe a little bit guilt-evoking. We should call it Smile and make it all about the positive change that you can create. So we had all these posters on campus saying, I love your smile, smile is coming, and just kind of fun stuff to kind of tease the campaign before it launched. And then we had it was called Carnage at the time, which is now what you guys call Karma. And someone came back from Carnage, and on their arm was written, sponsor a kid for £1. And they were in like my team, and they were like, Matt, I don't know where this came from. I was drunk, but I've just got this amazing nail on my arm. This has to be the name. And so we called it Sponsor a Kid for £1. And this is the guy that I was sponsoring originally. But yeah, we created this whole campaign on campus, and it was quite successful. We had about 150 students and staff who signed up after about a month or so. And the thing that really shocked me about it was the kind of people who were getting involved. So first of all, actually, our first set of posters, they just kind of said like smiles, smile and I love your smile. And when we were speaking to people about it, they were like, okay, that sounds cool, but I'm not really sure if I get it. And it was I was getting a little bit disappointed because I was like, okay, when I told people about the idea initially, they really got it. But all this smile stuff, they're just like, it just sounds a bit random. And then when I was having conversations with people specifically, they were saying, oh, that's really simple and clever. And so we changed all of our posters so that they said 18 students like pay £1 and that equals £18. And then that goes towards X, Y, Z. And when we did that, students got it and staff got it. I remember there were several university maintenance staff who also started getting involved with this. But the thing about the students that got involved was that they were students who weren't necessarily getting involved with other charity things, but their housemates had maybe come back from signing up and were like, come on, as a house, we should all sponsor a kid for £1. And so the thing that I realized through this was that by coming up with an idea that packaged a charity idea slightly differently, it was able to access a whole new set of people that I didn't necessarily think we would have reached. So that's something that I try and use moving, in other things that I do. And in the corner is my friend Kate, who's actually here. We're doing a session on Wednesday, but she was also involved with Carnival at the time, was one of the people who kind of helped us launch Smile. So that was in my fourth year that we did that. But just going back a little bit, there is some chronology to this. My housemates, I decided, having done Fame and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I really love organizing events. So it would be cool to just organize a massive party at a place called the Custard Factory, which I don't know if that's on your tour tonight, but it's somewhere in Digby, in the center of Birmingham. And my housemate, Tom, this guy in the red bandana in the middle with a gun, he was like, Matt, he's now working in oil. He was studying physics, but he was like, Matt, if we're going to organize a party, or if you're going to organize a party, then we shouldn't make profit from our friends. Instead, we should do it for charity. And I was like, okay, cool, that's a good idea. But again, it was another case of, I was like, Tom, you're not even into charity stuff. That's really cool that you're suggesting it. And so we organized this party. It was epic. We raised money for children in need. And I didn't do that through Carnival, but I just thought it's a good thing to do. And again, getting different friends of mine involved with making change in a positive way. And then 6 months later, it was Red Nose Day. And so I was like, okay, we did the Children in Need party. That was really cool. I'm gonna do another one. Went to a bigger venue, had singers and dancers and cheerleaders and drink offers. And the event was set to be amazing. Had loads of posters everywhere and flyers. And it was one of those occasions where nobody turned up. Has anybody had that experience? I really hope no one else has to go through that experience. It's the worst thing when you're there in a bar and everyone, the staff are there looking at you, wondering where everyone is, and you're looking at the door and no one's coming through. So that was a real lesson in not being complacent, because the learning there was that even though the previous one had been really cool, I told everyone about it. And in terms of, I hadn't really used social media. We didn't really have social media then. It was 2004. But I just kind of relied on posters and things like that. And the fact that it was a good idea, instead of texting people and running around and actually cajoling people into doing stuff. So that was a good kind of sobering moment for me in terms of, okay, well, it's all well and good having good ideas, but you really need to like get people properly involved by building a bit of a movement behind it. And one of the things that I've tried to take forward in terms of coming up with ideas and getting people's buy-in is this concept I call like creating a canvas, not a painting. So with some of the things that I've worked on, for example, Passion for Fashion, and this was a fair trade fashion show. The backstory of that is that in 2004, this is now in my third year, well, 2002, the reason why the party flopped, by the way, I think, is also because I had too much going on. So it was also my birthday, and I was running around campus dressed as an inflatable banana, like for Fair Trade Fortnight. There was so much going on that March. And so the following year, still thinking, okay, it's been a year since that party was a flop. Maybe I should do something else and like learn from the mistake I'd made. So I went to the university and I said, hi, I want to organize a massive student award show in the Deb Hall. And they were like, no, we already have an event. So yeah, you're not really going to do that, which was a shame because I'd been working on it for about a week. But then I went down to the student development office. A week for me was a long time. So maybe that's why the other ones didn't work. So I went to the student development office and I was like, just chilling there, feeling a little bit unhappy. And then my friend Mel walked in, who was the girl who'd got me carrying the inflatable banana a year before. She was head of the Fair Trade Society. And at that time, in Birmingham, no one really knew what fair trade was. Birmingham was just becoming a fair trade city and a fair trade university. And the majority of people who were promoting fair trade were people who were had dreadlocks and wore lots of hemp and were like, if you don't buy fair trade, then you're a bad person. So no one was really into fair trade that much. So I was like, okay. So I saw her and she was like, Matt, we've got 5 weeks until Fair Trade Fortnight, 2004. We want to organize a Fair Trade fashion show. We've got no one to organize it. She was just telling me as a friend, and I was like, I've just been told I can't organize a show. You need a show. I'll organize the show. And so having been in fame and stuff like that, I had all these choreographers and dancers who I knew. And my thinking was, I just want to apply that same kind of populist approach that I was going to inject into the student award show to what I'm doing with fair trade, because I don't want the fair trade event only to be for people who care and know about fair trade, because most of my friends and most people on campus have no idea what it is. So if we can make it cool and make it something, my whole motto with that was, I want to give people something they've never experienced before but want to experience again. And so we had each choreographer who was a dancer and didn't really know much about fashion was given a runway and given some models, and they had to turn those models into dancers, and each catwalk was a dance procession. And the event was really good. And the way that we talked about fair trade was there's a really simple problem. People aren't getting paid. And when you buy a chocolate bar or some wine, then it means that this person gets paid a better wage. And I think for students, they immediately got it because they were like, okay, I can see when I buy this, here's the impact that happens. And so as a result of that, sales of fair trade went up at the university, and the university called me in for a meeting and said, okay, please can you make this an annual event? Maybe can you organize it in the city center? And so the following year, I got someone else to organize the show, and then I graduated, and then 2 years, and then for the next 2 years, different people organized Passion for Fashions, and then it stopped because I think two societies were squabbling over who owned it, which is a shame. But again, that was a really good example for me in terms of here's a way of getting people to buy into an idea of changing the world in a way that is packaging it in a way that suits them and their lifestyle. And so then it kind of came to the end of my university time, and I had a couple of friends who were both doing internships at Channel 4, and they were like, Matt, given what you've done with Sponsor a Kid for a Quid and Passion for Fashion, you should really try and take these things forward, you should enter some awards. And I was like, look, all I've done is just this small thing at Birmingham, there's no need to kind of make a song and dance about it. But they both really, really encouraged me. And as a result, I applied and I won this Channel 4 award. And winning the award completely changed my outlook. So I suddenly realized that these ideas could maybe live beyond just my university experience, and that there was a way to take this almost on a national scale potentially. And so, and I mean, for me personally, I think whenever I've received encouragement for things in terms of people saying, this is a skill that you've got and here's how you can take it forward, it's really kind of motivated me even though I've realized that some people just made it up. So there was one example when I was 13, and I used to write these poems for this magazine, and the woman who used to who ran the magazine said to me when I was about 20, she was like, Matt, when you wrote those poems, they're rubbish. But I just told you they were good. So I just kind of encouraged you, and you actually got better. So I hope in this case it was actually all right. The encouragement paid off. But yeah, I ended up winning this, and it just made me think, okay, how can I take these ideas forward? So I finished uni, and my mum suggested that I get a job and work, and I thought, okay, well, what is it that I'm interested in? And I thought, well, the thing that really gets me going is this idea that if people don't participate, then it's our role as fundraisers and people who care about causes to innovate. And so that mindset is one that really fits well within the advertising industry. So I thought, okay, I'll work in advertising for a little bit, and then I'll go back and work on this idea, because that's my vision. I really want to enable people everywhere to change the world. And advertising will hopefully give me a few skills, but that's it. So I worked in advertising. I had like a few interviews, and there's a session I think on Wednesday about like how all the stuff you're doing at uni can be useful for your CV, which sounds like a really good session, because I didn't realize that the stuff that I was doing through Passion for Fashion and Carnival was going to put me in such good stead, such that when I went for interviews, I was offered so many roles, because they just said, wow, you studied like one thing, and yet you did all these fundraising and cause-related campaigns, so we definitely want to hire you. So anyway, I worked in advertising, and the thing that really struck me about how the advertising industry works is that they have this thing called insight. And the idea of an insight is that you research with whoever your kind of target market is for whatever you're selling or your product, and then you figure out what is it about these people that we can tap into in terms of, do they have hopes, dreams, fears, like something within their lifestyle that enables this product to really fit in well. And I remember at the time of my interview, like the Apple iPod has just become really big, and everyone was talking about that in terms of the genius behind the iPod and like the advertising campaign wasn't that they'd created an MP3 player, because there were loads of MP3 players before, but it was that the insight that they realized was that people found it cumbersome to take all of their music along with them. And so the idea of being able to say, you can have 1,000 songs in your pocket immediately connected with people, rather than saying, oh, here's this like MP3 player that does this, that, and the other. And so for me, I was like, okay, this really sits in with how I work, because when I think about causes, I don't think this cause is really worthy and people should care for it. I think, how can we talk about this cause in a way that people think, yeah, I can see how that relates to me. So working in advertising was good until I got fired. And the whole thing, the whole thing with that, it was a good experience. But I've been working in advertising for about 11 months at this stage. And the whole way through, I'd been thinking, okay, I really want to do this sponsor a kid for a quid idea. And I spoke with my managing director. She was great. Her name is Samantha Kennedy. We're still in touch. And we used to go for like Bailey's, like at 3 p.m. every now and again. Like, advertising is so jokes. So we'd like have these Bailey's catch-ups. And on one of them, she was like, Matt, I think that the way you think like an account director, which is like a senior person in an advertising agency, but you don't do the work of an account executive, which was my job. And she was like, you really want to shift that if you want to stay here. But I really admire like your vision for things. So like about a couple of months later, she was just like, Matt, my first job was in insurance, and I failed all my exams, and my boss called me and was like, Sam, insurance isn't for you, you should go into marketing. And she was like, Matt, I don't think advertising is for you. You should go into entrepreneurship and just do your thing. Like, that's what you're passionate about. So it was really good to get fired. And again, props to my parents, because they were really cool with it. Like, they were like, okay, you've lost your job. I hope you learn from it. And they just supported me in doing what I wanted to do next, which was inspired by a megabus. So I used to like go to Birmingham every now and again, because I still had loads of friends there. And one time I was on the megabus, like the whole £1 thing, and I saw a megabus come the other way, and it said, yeah, low cost intercity travel, and I think at the time it said £1 intercity travel. And I thought, with Sponsor a Kid for a Quid, what if we made it £1 international projects? Because there were quite a few people who signed up to Sponsor a Kid for a Quid, but I'm sure there are people who probably would have wanted to get involved if it was a cause that they liked. And so why don't we take that idea of relationship-based giving that you have in child sponsorship, but apply it to projects across the board. So I spoke to the entrepreneurship manager at Birmingham University about how to take this forward, because I was still an alumni, but we were in touch. And he was like, Matt, what you're doing comes under social entrepreneurship. And I was like, is that just like an entrepreneur who's really friendly? And he was like, no, it's an entrepreneur who's like trying to change the world. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So I applied for a grant from this organization called Unlimited. They gave me a grant to like take this idea and turn it into a website. And so I got back in touch with Samantha, and I was like, hey, Sam, I've got this grant, £5,000. I want to like create this website to let people change the world by giving to different projects. And she was like, okay, well, here's a technology agency that we've worked with on, I think we'd worked with them on Halifax. They built some epic website for us. So I went to them and I was like, hey, here's my £5,000. And they were like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And so we started working on the project and got about halfway through, and they were like, Matt, actually, we can't really complete the project to the scale that you want to complete it to. So that project ended up just stalling and nothing happened. This was in 2007, which was, again, another disappointment. Like, I think you'll realize my story is just full of disappointments. And it was a disappointment because at the time I was thinking, this agency, they've kind of led me along in a sense and like wasted this like grant money. But now that I look back on it, I think that there was definitely a flaw on my side in terms of trying to be too much of a perfectionist. And this is like a completely different point. But I think something that is really important, definitely when you leave uni and you don't have the same resources that you have here to like make stuff happen. At uni, you can like plan stuff and do these epic events, but I think outside of uni, when it comes to creating ideas, because you don't have the same resources, I found that I need to kind of scale my ideas back a little bit. And I think when I was meeting with this agency, I was still in this mode of, I can do anything and it can be really big. But I think even starting off with something small is good, and then you can build on from there. So that's what I should have done, and that's what I've learned. But nevertheless, in spite of that, a couple of organizations had heard about what I was doing, and one of them was linked to Microsoft. And so they flew me out to Kuala Lumpur because they were like, Matt, we think you're one of the top young global social entrepreneurs. And I was like, that's really cool. And so they sent me there. I met the other 99, and it was based on the fact that I was developing this idea, which at the time was called Warblow. And for me, it was just a case of, wow, okay, so even though I haven't actually made this happen yet, there's still people who are really supportive of what I'm doing. And so I kind of came back from Kuala Lumpur. It was like a 4-day trip. And I was thinking, okay, I want to move this idea forward, but we're having issues with our tech agency. And in the meantime, I really missed being at university because I'd left advertising. This was probably like a year after leaving. And I just thought, I missed the whole student nights that we always have. And I thought it would be cool if there was like an equivalent in London to meet other graduates who'd like left uni. So me and some friends like spent a while chatting through ideas, and then we came up with this name, Gradulicious. We were like, we're going to do dinner parties for graduates in London so they can get to meet like-minded people. And we ran these events for like 15 or 18 months, every month in different venues, and it worked out really well. And then it got to like about month 18, and I was like, okay, this is great in London. It'd be cool if we can expand it. I'm going to go on Dragon's Den. So I went on Dragon's Den. That's the picture in the bottom left. And that was a traumatizing experience. My girlfriend, Nikki, I spoke to her afterwards, and she can testify to the amount of trauma that was in my voice after that. And so again, it was another disappointment, standard. But as a result of that, I met this girl called Annabelle, who had just started, whose parents were part of this thing called the Funding Network, which is a really smart organization. Their whole idea is that they organize events like similar size to this, for example, with like 100, 200 people. Then they get a handful of charities to pitch saying, okay, this is how we'd spend like £1,000, £10,000. Then the people in the audience then say, okay, I'll give £100, £200. So I went to one of these and I was like trying to force my hand not to go up because it was really magical, the whole thing of I know where my money's going to go and I'm among people who are also wanting to make change. And Annabelle thought, it'd be cool if we do a version of this for people who are our age. So she and I started this thing called YTFN in 2008. And we're now 5 years old. We've been doing it like pretty much every 3 or 4 months. And I think we've now just raised like about £90,000 in total. But the thing that's important about YTFN isn't the amount of money that's raised, but it's going back to that my original point in terms of it's been a real case of getting people to give who wouldn't otherwise give. So again, speaking to the people who come to the events, many of them say, the reason I really like the YTFN events is because I know where my money's going, and it's like a really fun environment to kind of give like £10 or £20 and know that it's contributing towards a bigger goal. And so that's something that we're going to be talking about on Wednesday if you kind of want to find out how you can do that at your uni, for example. And so kind of while doing YTFN and still thinking about this Warblow idea and kind of getting over being slated by the dragons, I met 20 other young people who had also won awards from Unlimited to start their ideas. And they were like, Matt, you're like one of our top young social entrepreneurs because your idea is really good. And by this stage, I was beginning to feel slightly insecure because I was like, all these people are saying I've done all this stuff, and yet we haven't actually made it happen yet. But nevertheless, me and the other 20 went on this 1-week course, and they were all young social entrepreneurs who'd done amazing things. One of them, a girl called Emma Spiegler, who runs Co-op, her parents had been addicted to drugs, and she'd had to grow up in that environment. So the way that she dealt with it was, first of all, writing like a poetry anthology describing her experiences, and then she created a website for other children who were kids of parents who are addicted to drugs. So it's children of addicted parents, that's Co-op. So it was people like that who'd all gone through like severe experiences and then come up with amazing solutions to it that they were using to help other young people. And so having been among those other 20, we all thought, okay, this is great that we've been put on this course, and they're saying that we're like their top young social entrepreneurs, but we're just normal people and we know that we make mistakes. So I was like, guys, I make loads of mistakes, as I've told you about. And so we thought it would be good if we can form an organization which can help other young people create ideas that can create a positive impact in the world. And at that time, Unlimited, which was the organization that had given us the, like my grant and the other people their grants, had come to the end of its funding cycle and didn't have any more money to give to different projects. And so as a group of 21 people and Unlimited, we went to the big lottery fund and we spoke to Phil Hope, who was then Minister for the Third Sector when Labour were in government. And we spoke to all of these people and we were just saying, there's a real opportunity to get young people to change the world because young people want to do things, they go through stuff. Don't just think about the stuff that you see on the news about young people being like getting Asbros and stuff like that. And so we ended up creating this thing called the Commission for Youth Social Enterprise and secured like a £5 million grant, which then went to Unlimited and was used to then roll out their program for another 5 years. And I think it ends this year. But for me, that was a really good opportunity to kind of be working on a project that enabled more young people to be coming up with ideas that made a positive impact. And I think what's really exciting about the stuff we did with that project and that Unlimited did, and we went into different schools and inspired young people to come up with ideas, was that, again, it was a case of going to people who didn't necessarily think they had an opportunity to do something positive, but we were like going into their school and like being other young people who they could relate to and saying, well, here's an opportunity for you to do something, or giving them like funds to make their ideas happen. And so I think something that's a real core with me, and I think is something that is embraced in Carnival, is a sense, or in RAGS generally, is a sense of how can we move people to change the world their way? What can we put in place that enables them to connect with causes they really care about? So end of 2008, or 2009 now, I'm beginning to lose my years, I was still thinking about this idea, and I was like, okay, I've used the grant, we didn't make it happen that way. How can I move my idea forward of getting people to change the world their way? This is something that I really care about. And so I did this little survey on Facebook and just asked those people different questions. And the results that came back were really encouraging because people were saying, I do want to know where my money goes. And the idea of giving to different charities with my friends is cool. And so it kind of gave me the encouragement to think, okay, I should definitely move forward with this. But unlike last time when I'd just spoken to my friend Samantha and got a tech agency to do it, I was like, I need to learn from this. I need to get a team around me. So I got 3 guys who I've worked with on different projects. Abby in the bottom left, I worked with on Gradulicious, and Ola I worked with on some Orange project. and Ahmed I'd worked with on the commission. And so they were all people who were just like, Matt, we're not going to take any nonsense from you. So whenever I came up with ideas, they're like, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. And together we finessed it into something that we felt would be cool. And the central idea of what we were thinking about was to kind of have this way of visualizing the impact of people's donations. We thought, if we could have some kind of change timeline that said, okay, you've helped this many people and had different icons to represent it, then we could be like going in a direction towards making the whole idea of changing the world something that's really transparent, so that the people who gave through YTFN and the people who gave through Sponsor a Kid for a Quid and the people who had even been inspired by Passion for Fashion to buy fair trade, people who were thinking, I want to know the impact I can make, this could be something that for them made them feel that they were making a difference. And so what we've created is this platform called Makeable, which goes live in like a week. But the central premise of it is that everybody has this, which is their change profile. And at the moment, we're creating a library of all the different outputs and outcomes that charities can create in terms of the different impacts that they can make. So that at the end of the projects they run, or at the end of the year, they can publish, this is the impact that we've had, and next to each impact, they can put photos and videos describing it. And the idea is that all the impacts together are brought together into your change score, and you can like follow your friends and see what's happening there. And so at the moment, we're at a stage whereby we're in what we call our alpha launch phase, so we're going to be launching it soon. One of the things we want to be talking to people about on Wednesday is we had this idea for what we call our lifestyle checkout, which is where people can say, this is how much I want to give, like a snaky bee a month, or a vodball a month, or a round of drinks, or whatever, like different amounts that match their lifestyles. That's something that people can, it'd be good to get your feedback on that in terms of how we could use that for students, getting them to give, and also for each RAG to potentially have their own change profile so that your charities can say, this is the impact we've made, and then you can then show that to the donors who've given to the RAGs over the course of the year. And this is something that came out from like some of the research that I did, and this was this guy in the purple, he was saying that the reason he loves to volunteer because he sees the impact of his donations, but when it comes to giving money, he's really reticent because he doesn't really know what happens. And from some of the people who we spoke to yesterday, they were saying that that was kind of a similar thing in that you were saying that there was some of your students were saying that they wanted to know where their money went. Just to get a flavor of like the room, are there people who, how many people have had that experience in terms of students saying that they want to know where their money goes? Is that like a general thing? Okay, cool, interesting. So that's kind of similar with our research. But then the thing that makes it, for me, more important is that across the country, there's 9.5 million people who've said that they would give more to charity if they had a better view of where their money went. And two of the organizations that have done research into this, one is called New Philanthropy Capital, and they identified that there's an additional £665 million that would be given by people if they knew where their money went. And that's the annual income of 80,000 like small charities, which is like half the number of charities in the UK. So for me, like my kind of mission with this is I really want to reach those 9.5 million people and raise that £665 million, if not more, and just kind of increase those donations that go to different charities. And yeah, from what I've seen, there's scope to do this around the world, but I think starting with UK makes sense. So just to kind of wrap up, the things that I've learned from my experiences and that I think I really want to try and apply in life and I think might be relevant for you guys is the first one, that people are inherently good. And I think we have like a real opportunity with RAGs for this year, and that's the whole part of the point of the conference, I think, to see what ideas can we come up with and how can we implement things that enable us to tap into the causes that people really care about so that they can do like good stuff. And I think doing good into where people are at is really important. So with me, I did like Carnage a couple of times. And I didn't really do that much other stuff under RAG apart from Smile, but I'd organized my own events because that was what was suitable to me. And my friends who got involved with the Fair Trade Fashion Show, they were people who didn't even know about fair trade, but for them, they just thought, I want to be part of something epic. So they were people who just loved fashion. And so if there's ways for you to come up with event ideas that tap into people who aren't necessarily motivated by the cause, but like just love doing great things, then that's always awesome. This third point of creating a canvas, not a painting, I didn't really explain that, but the thing with the fashion show was that I said, okay, this is what I want to create, like a fashion show. But then I spoke to the choreographers and I said, you do your thing with the fashion, with like the choreography. I'm not going to dictate how that happens. And then I went to the Photography Society and the Video Society and the Art Society and the Dance Society. And I said to all of them, here's this template of a show. You put your style on it. And I think the idea of kind of making it open so that everybody could put something into the event that made it ownable by them was something that really gave it currency and made it interesting to people. My fourth thing is, if it's imaginable, it's possible. And the reason I say that is because it's been a 10-year journey getting to this makeable stage, and now we're finally there. And I think it's definitely easy to give up on things when things seem to be going slowly, but I would say definitely, if you believe it's possible, and if you can imagine it, then like because of technology and because we believe in things, I think it's definitely possible to make them happen. And I guess my final thing to us as RAG is, let's try and help people make change. It's not necessarily a case of how can we raise as much money as we can, which is like, that's like the end objective. I think in terms of thinking about it from the student side, I'm always thinking, how can I inspire someone to change the world so that they feel they've done it for themselves and that they feel really proud of what's happened. So yeah, have a great conference. It's been good talking to you. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks very much to Matt for that fantastic presentation. If anyone has any questions, I've got the roaming mic now, so if you just stick your hand up, I'll come and find you. Oh, come on, there must be some. There we go.
Hi, for those people that are interested, is there a way that they can kind of log their details so that once it's live, you can then contact them with relevant information about Makeable? Because as you said, it's in alpha stage at the moment, and so I'm guessing that all these people can't use it for a few more weeks.
Sure. So we're going to be around at conference for the next few days, so you can speak to us and sign up there, or you can go online to makeable.launchrock.com, and then you can put in your email address there, and then we can give you more info once it's up.
Hi, how do you calculate the score on the website for how much change people are making?
So with the idea of the change score, so my girlfriend does maths. She's a mathematician. And we had this idea of having numbers next to every kind of output and outcome. So if it was a case of there were 4 trees planted, then that was a 4, or 3 kids helped, then that was a 3. And then it was actually her suggestion, which I thought made sense. Why don't we just put all those scores together as to one score? And the thinking behind that was, when we then actually talked it through properly as a team, we thought that kind of makes it really easy to see all the different impacts that people have made. And it means that someone can then click on their score and see how it breaks down. So it's not necessarily, so it's not that we're saying planting a tree is the same as saving someone's life, but it's a way of illustrating what change means to you. So when someone looks at your score, they see, well, for this person, 12,000 means they've helped 12,000 trees, whereas for someone else it might be 300, but that means they've saved 300 people's lives or something. So initially it was a case of individual students, but then because this idea for me came from university, I definitely want to see how we can get students involved, because my whole thing at the start was it needs to be £1, and then people were like, no, make it more. So yeah, the idea is that as a RAG can have its own page, and you can then, there's 2 ways that you can use it. One is you can have your page and then invite students to donate online towards it. So they can give, say, £1 a month towards the RAG page, and then that just goes up to your total. And depending on when you give money to different charities, you can either give it at the end of the year or as you go. And a good point to make is that Makeable is really transparent. So when someone donates, 5% of the transaction goes in admin fees, 1% goes to our payment partner, and then 4% goes to Makeable. So that's like always like upfront and clear. But yeah, people can do that, they donate, or the RAG can just, at the end of the year, if the charities that they give to can log in and say, here's a project that the money has gone to, and so it's just a way of displaying the impact. So it's either a donation thing to get additional donations, and or using it to display the impact so students can see what happened. The main thing is that the organizations need to be registered charities and able to use the internet. So literally that's it. Some charities can't use the internet. But there's no other criteria other than that. So we've got a team, and one of Annabelle, who looks after our relationships with charities, is currently onboarding as many as we can. So there's about 40 that we've got so far. Most of them are like small, medium-sized ones. But Kate's been speaking to people to see which charities you work with so we can get them on. And we're speaking to the larger ones at the moment. So I think we're seeing UNICEF on Friday and then Save the Children next week. So it's like quite new, but we're adding on more as possible. And there's no charge for the charities. So for them, it's quite straightforward to use. No, there's no sign-up fee. Because the whole thing was, I didn't really start this thinking about it in terms of how to make it work operationally. I was like, I just want to do this thing. And then the entrepreneurship manager at Birmingham, he was great, because he was like, Matt, you need to have a way of making this sustainable. But then looking at things like Just Giving that had a monthly fee and other ones that had a sign-up fee, I was like, well, if this doesn't work for a charity, then it feels unfair that they need to pay us a fee. So just having it linked to the donation seemed like the most fair way to do it. So that's how it works. So there's a question over here. Oh, so for the gift aid, we reclaim the gift aid, and then it gets paid into your account from HMRC. I don't like dealing with money. It's just like it's real hassle. As in, it's okay. I'm just saying me personally, I don't like dealing with money. So what we've said to HMRC is that we'll send the data about gift aid donations, and then it just gets paid directly into the charity's account. So there's like no additional accounting that we need to do on that. 5%. So it's like 4% and then 1%. Not that you couldn't work that out. That was more for my own benefit. Sorry.
Any more questions at all? Well, thanks very much to Matt for that presentation. We'll give Matt a round of applause.
Thanks.
And as Matt said in his presentation, he's going to be giving a seminar tomorrow. I think it's 3 o'clock, isn't it, Matt? 3 o'clock. Check the conference delegate pack for that. And just kind of find him around. He'll be at conference as well. I've got a couple of words from the NUS, if that's possible, about the NAS for AGM. That's going to be happening at 4 o'clock till 5:30 tomorrow.
Hi everyone. So I'm Fiona, I'm the Student Opportunities Manager at NUS. Hopefully most of you will know Rachel Matty, who's our Vice President of Union Development, who is on her way here, but she had to have a meeting this morning. But I just wanted to tell you really quickly about the NASFA AGM, which is tomorrow. So hopefully most of you will know NASFA as the National Student Fundraising Association, which essentially is a representative body from you guys as RAGs to help shape and direct and change policy that we can help support you to deliver, but also to create change for RAGs locally in your universities, in your towns, cities, regions, that kind of thing. So tomorrow we've got the NASFA AGM, where we will elect the new NASFA committee. So the roles have changed slightly from last year. There will be 6 roles on the committee, and they are all non-portfolio. So what that means is you don't have a particular mandate to run for, so you don't run for communications or secretary. You can run on a mandate of whatever you want to do, and the 6 people with the most votes will win. So we do something called ATV, so it's a voting system where you state a preference. We'll explain all this tomorrow, and so you can put your preference for the kind of 6 people that you think want to take those roles on. I've got to read you some committee election rules. To run for the committee, you've got to be a current student or a sabbatical officer of a UK college or university. So only if you are at university, either as a SAB or as a student officer. As a committee member, you can serve 2 years on the committee, but you have to be re-elected. So if anyone on the existing committee wants to rerun, they have to be re-elected. Only members of UK colleges or universities are eligible to vote. So if you're a charity or a company, you can't vote. And it is 1 vote per institution. So if you've got multiple delegates from your institution, you have to decide amongst you who you will vote. So we will give the ballot papers out when you arrive at the AGM. So you'll have to come down and see Rosie and I, and we will give you a ballot paper and we'll tick it off and we'll write the name from your party who's got the ballot paper. So you need to decide amongst you how you do that as a vote. Only 1 person from each institution can be elected. So what the kind of committee were worried about is actually if there are 4 delegates from one institution, you could end up taking 4 places. And actually it's about making sure that you have this kind of fair representation. So only 1 person from each institution can be on the committee. It means that more of you can run. So actually, if 2 of you from the same institution wants to run, that's absolutely fine. But the person with the highest number of votes would get in. So actually, if 2 people from the same institution went and you both got 1st and 2nd place, actually it would only be the person that was got 1st place that would get onto the committee. All of the kind of rules, if anyone wants to kind of check them, are on a handout that we've got to take away, so you can check and clarify anything. Nominations close tomorrow at 12:30. All you need to do is put your name, institution, your phone and your email address, and the name and details of a proposer and a seconder. And on the back of the rules form is a form that you just literally need to fill out, and then you need to hand it either to myself or to Rosie down here. So we'll be around for the whole of the conference, but on here we've got some particular times where we'll be so you can find us to hand your nomination form in. We've got a NASFA stall, which will be at the entrance to the Charities Fair, so you can come and find us there. Either pick up a form after this, or you can pick it up from there and hand them completed ones in. We'll be outside the entrance to breakfast between 8 and 9 tomorrow, so you can hand it in there. And then we'll also be outside the seminar room LR224 between 12 and 12:30. So after the last lot of seminars tomorrow morning, so you'll have a half an hour to finish and find us to hand your nomination in. That's all you need to do. At the NASFA AGM, we'll ask you to come up and do a 1 or 2 minute presentation, depending on how many of you are, but we'll let you know in advance. So that's why you need to put your phone number down so we can let you know. So prepare either a 1 or a 2 minute presentation on why you want to be elected, and then we'll have the vote afterwards. We hope that we can do the count really quickly and let you know at the end of the RAG Awards, but if not, we'll let you know on the Thursday. So we'll leave the forms for you to pick up on the bottom of the stage, so come and grab them if there's anything you need, or if you want to check anything, come and have a chat with Rosie and I at the end of this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Fiona. Okie doke, so just a couple more quick things before I let you guys get away. The plan for today, so we've got seminars, as I said, one starting here in this room at 11 o'clock, and the other seminar room is, I believe, WG5, which is over at the Aston Web. Don't worry about finding that. We're going to have some volunteers lining the route from the Costa downstairs from 10 to 11. So if you're wanting to move across to the other room, meet them there, and then they'll forward you across at 10 to. For those of you who wanted to come to the session now, feel free to go grab a coffee, whatever you want to do, but it will be starting here promptly at 11 o'clock. Then at 12 o'clock, the charity fair formally opens, so all the stalls will be set up and ready to go. Feel free to grab lunch whenever you like. I think it'll probably take about 1.5 to 2 hours to get around the stalls completely, so feel free to make full use of the time. As I said, Costa's open, both in this building and also in the Guild, if you want to have any meetings or networking. There's that meeting at 3 o'clock in Costa, downstairs here. for all members of RAG staff and sabbatical officers, whoever want to come. And then a quick word about the AGM tomorrow. Obviously, those of you that are eagle-eyed will have noticed that it finishes at 5:30 and then the RAG Awards start at 6:30. So that means that if the AGM runs completely to time, you'll have an hour to rush back up to the Vale, get showered, jeshed, whatever you want to do, then get back onto campus for RAG Awards. Now, RAG Awards are in the same venue as the charity fair. We've got a big turnaround today trying to get all the tables down. But they will be starting promptly at 6:30 with food served at 7, so you do need to be on time. So just make allowances in your day that obviously you'll need to rush back and get ready for that. Yes?
Sorry, I should have said, at the NESCO AGM, we'll vote for the RAG conference hosted
Yes.
next year as well. So just to know you've got that. If someone from the RAG conference, the people that are bidding, just come and see me really quickly, if you just don't have a question and answer session, so just like I say, you'll get everyone.
Do you want to do that now after the session?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so people representing the 3 bids that we've got for our conference, if you want to come down to the front of the stage just after we finish now, then we'll have a quick chat about that. Fab. So you're going to pop those pieces of paper just at the front down here. And yeah, so feel free to go grab a coffee, whatever you want to do. Session starting at 11 o'clock. Thanks very much.